Politics makes me barf this time.
This guy does not like history at all.
Not one bit. Incognito. Wow.
That's how we got the name Australia.
Oh, incognito means unknown.
South Australia was actually a free state, which meant that most of the people that came to Adelaide were not prisoners.
Boy, that's nice to know.
Another surprising fact. What the fuck? New Zealand was part of Australia.
Yeah.
That's
Holy
crazy.
shit.
It's part of New South Wales, my friend.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Welcome back, folks. You're watching U3 Media. You got Khalid with you as usual.
You got me, Raja. Hello.
And we got Sanjay back in the building, mate.
We got another interesting history react video for you today.
Interesting, bro. Let me tell you something. Politics makes me barf this time.
This isn't Sanjeev's field day. React after react after react, but that's too
Politics.
Right, so Australia is one of the big players in the world, but its actions often don't get highlighted. Its politics is often controversial, but not something that gets the world going, hey, what the hell was that? You know, not like Donald Trump, at least. Australia is a socialist republic, if I'm not wrong.
No, it's actually not a republic.
Oh,
yet.
okay. I didn't know that we were an authoritarian,
It's not.
dictatorial.
I think we follow a monarchy still. So
Right.
that's why our highest person, the official, is a governor general, actually.
We're still tied to the Queen.
Yes, we are very much... No, king, actually.
We're
King.
king.
Yes.
But it is still a democratic country.
yes.
We
We still govern our own laws and all that, but we're still
Right,
a monarchy.
Yeah. And Australia has come a long way from a penal colony of the British Crown to what it is today. We'll be watching a video on that, and we'll also be finding out why the individual colony states federated. Yeah, did you know that Queensland, South Australia, these were practically different countries within the same continent?
Oh my
What?
days.
But you didn't know that.
So every time I will be traveling to Gold Coast, I'm kind of traveling to another country.
Yeah.
That's another stamp on my passport.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're going to be watching a video on the animated history of Australia, and this is basically a speed run of what happened over the last, 200 years?
And make sure you put on your headphones for better viewing experience.
All right, Sanjeev, you better have your, barfing jeans ready. This is going to make me barf. This guy does not like history at all.
Not one bit.
This episode is brought to you by Skillshare. The first 500 viewers who sign up using the link below get 2 months of Skillshare absolutely free. Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Macrobius believed that there was far too much land in the northern hemisphere, and that there must be some undiscovered continent balancing the globe somewhere in the south. Okay, so the logic was a little flawed, but during the Age of Discovery, the search was on for Terra Australis Incognito. Fast forward a few centuries to the East Indies. 3 Dutch sailors.
Incognito. Wow.
That's how we got the name Australia.
Oh, incognito means unknown.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's,
Crazy.
yes, that's why you use the incognito browser.
Unknown mode.
Yeah.
Forward a few centuries to the East Indies. 3 Dutch sailors landed in Australia accidentally in the 1600s. The mythical southern continent had just been found.
Whoa.
Sanjeev, do you remember what it was called when the Dutch found it? From our previous video. New Holland, come on.
That's crazy.
Australia was the last of the New World to be discovered, because let's be honest, nobody cares about Antarctica.
Oh, man.
Australia was of
Oh,
course
damn.
already
Antarctica.
inhabited.
That's
cold,
Indigenous
bro. That's
Australians,
cold.
also known as, had a population
Shout
of
out
between
to
300
Aboriginal.
and 700,000 by modern estimates. Early contacts with these tribes were as often peaceful as they were violent. It is thought that these groups arrived in 2 stages. The first was from the Indian subcontinent via a land bridge that connected Australia to the island of New Guinea, bringing with them the Pama-Nyungan language family. The second wave was much later and may have been groups related to the Austronesians of Indonesia. Their culture and history was preserved through the oral tradition. The Dutch named the island New Holland after the county of Holland in the Netherlands, but it wasn't until the British landed on the east coast and named it New South Wales that Europeans began to settle. Landing in Port Jackson on the 26th of January 1788, hey, that's today. The so-called First Fleet arrived to found the colony of Sydney, with the intention of using the labour of prisoners to achieve wealth for Britain. However, contrary to Australia's convict founding myth, less than half of this First Fleet were actually convicts. In the 1800s, Australia was circumnavigated, mapped, and new colonies started springing up all over. Hobart, Newcastle, Launceston, Port Macquarie, Brisbane and Melbourne, with dozens of penal centres. Adelaide and Perth were founded as free settlement cities, but the latter was made into a penal colony after it failed to grow naturally.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. South Australia was actually a free state, which meant that most of the people that came to Adelaide were not prisoners.
Oi, that's nice to know.
I don't know about
Shout
that.
out to fellow Adelaideans.
Whenever I go to like what was it? When I was in Sydney, actually, as a kid, they always talked about the convicts coming here, especially when we were looking into the history of how Sydney became a city and all that, or how Australia became a country and all that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This one's a bit of a debate, I guess, whether they were actually convicts or they were near the end of their sentences.
No, they did go to Sydney, though. They went to Sydney.
The convicts, right? Yeah, but less than half of them being convicts is a bit sus because why?
At the beginning, perhaps. Maybe later they made it a full-on penal colony.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
Frontier wars began with the Aboriginals, many of whom were hostile to the foreign invaders. Most famously, the Black War of Tasmania, which nearly wiped out the Indigenous Tasmanians. But far more destructive to the Aboriginals was smallpox, which killed tens of thousands. Australia's growth would stagnate until the 1850s gold rush, which drew hundreds and thousands of settlers from all around the world in search for wealth, particularly in New South Wales and what would become Victoria. This would forever change Australia's character with new...
Damn. The gold rush.
Yeah.
Did you know 70% of the world's wealth for gold came from Australia? Like the mining. 70% of the world's mining came from Australia for gold.
Wow.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's why like Chinese immigrants came at that time as well during the gold rush.
Yes.
Because there was a lot of gold there and they were booming.
Yeah.
Another surprising fact, what the fuck? New Zealand was part of Australia.
Yeah.
That's
Holy
crazy.
shit.
It's part of New South Wales, my friend.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Australia's character, with new free settlers overshadowing its convict past, bringing with them their ideas of European Enlightenment, the American self-determinism, and the Chinese hatred for the British. These gold diggers became discontented with the corrupt and badly run colonial elites and rose up in rebellion in the infamous Eureka Stockade. These settlers were beginning to feel a sense of nationalism, that perhaps Australia could be something different. The winds of change were on Terra Australis, and soon, large-scale trade unions developed in Australia's largely working-class population from the ideas of orthodox Marxists. Trade unions still hold a significant influence over Australian politics today.
But let's not forget the rift that had been forming between Australia and Australians, the government and its people. Thousands of ex-convicts were being released each year, most of them turning to civil jobs, but a sizable minority turned to Australia's bushy frontier for freedom and profits. Policing was harsh, but order couldn't reach far enough. Outside of the cities, only personal gain and wealth could drive law enforcement. Money would change hands and lips were sealed. In this climate, an Australian icon was born, Ned Kelly. Famous for his tin hat Robin Hood thievery, infamous for his cop killing and town raids, and recognisable everywhere for that nifty bulletproof suit.
Olden day Batman.
No, mate. That entire suit was made out of iron. Or something like that. So it was so heavy, and that's how he got killed as well. Because he was covered in iron, and they were shooting. So he couldn't get killed by it, but it was so heavy that they could shoot him. They could run up to him from the back and shoot him as well.
Oh, wow.
He was Iron Man before Iron Man, actually.
Well, that's crazy.
Dude, we have this should be another episode where we look into like the life of Ned Kelly. Very famous guy here in Australia, but I know abroad.
They probably don't know who it is.
You probably don't know who he is. Maybe the name might ring a bell, but you don't know.
Maybe let us know in the comment section below if you guys want us to do an episode on Mr. Ned Kelly and how he got popped.
Or if you enjoy seeing Sanjeev buff into history facts and stuff.
Well-known cornerstones of Australian folklore, come to my channel, Feature History, and check out my video on Old Ned.
Okay, so besides bulletproof suits or whatever, most Aussie colonies were granted self-governing status and united to form the Commonwealth of Australia in 1901, a dominion of the British Crown.
Right, this is when they became
The
a
Australian government was very
federation.
quick to open up a new dark chapter in Aboriginal history, the infamous Stolen Generation. Beginning in 1905, the government began rounding up half-castes, a term which is now highly offensive, and settled them into white families with the intention of breeding out their Aboriginal blood, in a form of cultural genocide. Abuses of these children were also rampant, which is a rather depressing segue into the White Australia policy, a set of strict settlement acts which restricted immigration from anyone who wasn't British or Northern European up until about the Second World War. As a British colony, Australia would unilaterally declare war on Germany during the First World War, forming the Australia and New Zealand Army Corps, or ANZACs. The young nation was sent headfirst into war. Around 500,000 soldiers volunteered, or nearly 1/10 of the total population. The baptism of fire came during the Gallipoli campaign, when more than 8,000 men lost their lives in the failed invasion of Turkey, an event etched into the memory of the Australian zeitgeist. Although crippled from the Great Depression, Australia again
Watch our video on the Gallipoli campaign. Help us out.
took up arms in 1939 to support her mother nation in the Second World War, this time fighting in Europe, North Africa, the Pacific and South Asia. Prisoners of war in Malaya, Burma and Thailand were treated inhumanely by the Japanese, who also bombed Australia's northern coast about 100 times. Australia is still a
Wow,
very
that's
young
crazy.
nation, but it has emerged a very powerful force in the region, now a beacon of democracy, social progressivism and commerce, with its phenomenal urbanization consistently ranked among the world's most livable cities.
That looks like Guja
Walking
Street.
the line between left and
That's
right
Melbourne,
with
bro.
generous social programs, universal suffrage, a welcoming immigration policy, and attractive business prospects. This is John. John wants to learn how to play the didgeridoo he bought from a garage sale, but the lessons are expensive, so John will probably give up. But wait, John, you
Right.
It's okay. John shall play this later if he has to.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that rabbit fence is like a border between, I think, Western Australia and South Australia, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
And, you know, it's to keep Aboriginals from meeting each other as well sometimes. I think so.
That's crazy.
I know.
And you know what's crazy? The half caste law. I did not know that. They should breed them out just so that they can remove the
Yeah,
Aboriginal
yeah,
culture. That's crazy.
That's the Stolen
So
Generation.
how did that work? Like the white guys would breed with the Aboriginal girls, or
Yeah, whatever, right? Like, because what you have to understand is when the Australians came here, like when the convicts, a large majority of them were men, like 70% men, maybe 30% women. So they probably had interracial relationships and had babies, and then it was kind of frowned upon by the wider society to have those children. So they were like, you know what, no, we don't want.
But then they took a turn and they were like, okay, we can integrate them, but we're going to remove that culture from them.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very dark chapter in Aussie history, the Stolen Generation.